All right, so let's do Yankees trade deadline grades for every Yankees trade of the 2025 trade deadline. First trade, we're going to talk about Ryan McMahon for Griffin Herring and Josh Gross, two pitchers sent to Colorado in return for McMahon. The Yankees' new third base option. I'm not a big fan of this move. I don't really see McMahon as the headline player of the deadline. The third base spot was supposed to be where that big headline player came in, and I don't see Ryan McMahon as that. They ended up going with a platoon here of McMahon and Ahmed Rosario at third. And McMahon has already sort of shown who he is as a player. He's got a clutch hit in him. He's an excellent fielder, but he's also a big time strikeout hitter. He's kind of a wiffle ball hitter. He's either going to hit the ball really hard in the air with a lot of exit velocity or not at all. I still don't like the 171 road split. I still don't think he's going to project over the long term as a Yankee. And I still think the better move out there was either Moncada or especially a Eugenio Suarez. And I think that this is a specific time where if you're trying to win a World Series, if you're trying to really win a championship this year, as the GM of the Yankees, it's basically your responsibility to give up the prospects and to bite the bullet. And we didn't do that. And you can still get Moncada, you can still get Suarez and bring in Rosario clearly. And I think this trade is sort of a result of how Cashman approached this deadline. Not so much as about winning a championship, but about minimizing and maximizing values. So I'm just gonna give this trade a C because it's the smart business option, not the option to win a championship. So next up, Ahmed Rosario for Clayton Beeter and outfielder Braum Martinez. Now, Clayton Beeter has future reliever written all over him. He's got a two-pitch mix. He's struggled to develop a secondary pitch, so the Yankees have moved him on here to Washington outside outfielder Braum Martinez. You always have to be careful trading a young outfielder to the Nationals. The Nationals are great at developing outfielders. So we'll see if Braum Martinez turns into anything. But for now, I think this was the best position player the Yankees picked up at the deadline. I think he's the best fit in the clubhouse. I think he's the best fit on the team. I think he's got a really sound overall game for a guy who doesn't get that much playing time, which is something I think is also pretty true about Austin Slater, who unfortunately just went to the IL, who we'll talk about next. So to me, despite what the Yankees gave up, this is still a pretty clear win of a trade, and I'm giving the Ahmed Rosario trade a B. Now, I downgraded this trade from a B plus to a C plus after Slater got injured. And also because, honestly, we sent Gage Zeal to the White Sox for Austin Slater, and the White Sox aren't in as bad of shape as I thought they were for the season they had last year. They've already won as many games this year as they won last year. Now, that's not saying much. That's only 41. But the White Sox are a little bit of a ways along their rebuild at this point, so it's not impossible that Gage Zeal turns into a decent major league arm at some point and has a decent team to be on and accumulates some decent value in the future. So this isn't necessarily the shoo-in of a W of a trade here for the Yankees that I thought it was at first, even that I still believe in Austin Slater's skill set. So this trade was downgraded from a B plus when I first wrote this script to a C plus. Next up, it's my highest grade of the video. David Bednar comes in from the Pirates for catchers Rafael Flores and Edglin Perez, as well as outfielder Brian Sanchez. Now, the Pirates picking up two catchers from us here, I feel like, is them trying to salvage a major league piece out of this trade any way that they can. The Yankees have very good catching development, and the Pirates know it. The Pirates couldn't even develop a catcher out of the first overall pick in Henry Davis, it seems like. So I guess they're just trying to siphon off some of our ability to develop catching, as if that's how that works. This seems like a really big win of a trade here for the Yankees. I doubt that any of the guys we sent over to Pittsburgh are going to develop in that honestly pretty bad minor league system they have over there. I mean, they didn't develop Paul Skeens. I hate to break that to you. LSU developed Paul Skeens, not the Pirates. So there's really no danger, I think, of any of these guys turning into anybody that can hurt us in the future, and David Bednar is for sure going to help the bullpen. So this trade gets an A from me. Next up, Jose Caballero for Everson Pereira and a player to be named later. Now, Tampa Bay feels like a much better place for Pereira than New York. A much better place. We did him pretty dirty this season. We didn't give him any playing time. We didn't really give him any opportunity to prove himself. I think he's got some talent. He's got a big frame. He can play left field okay. He seemed a little overwhelmed in pinstripes, and he really didn't get enough playing opportunities. And getting that limited of playing time as a rookie, as a Yankee, it's just never been a good mix. The Yankees do a lot better introducing guys right into the starting lineup and, giving them chance on chance on chance to sort of get used to the pressure and the big market pressure of the Bronx. And when you're just stuck out there with a few playing opportunities, it's got to put a lot of weight on your shoulders. So Tampa Bay is going to feel like a big weight off to Pereira, and it's a division rival. Plus, Jose Caballero with that awful first impression dropping that ball. I could give this trade an F in the future, but for now, I'm just going to give it a D. But if Pereira shows out in Tampa, this trade's an F for sure. Next up, the Yankees received Jake Bird from the Colorado Rockies for shortstop Rock Riggio and pitcher Ben Shields. And Bird has really struggled and been sent back to the minor league, so I've downgraded this trade to a D from a C, and a D is honestly generous. I think, I like Bird's ability, at least in terms of his stats and his analytics, to keep the ball down and to limit damage, but he has far from done that so far as a Yankee. He's given up bomb after bomb after bomb, and now he's back down in Scranton already, 4 days into his Yankee tenure. So it's been a disaster so far. On the pure trade front, the Yankees gave up a bit too much as well, to be honest with you. He was very clearly their most obvious target. I feel like the Rockies knew that we wanted him and made us pay accordingly, and we had to pay up in the form of Rock Riggio, one of our top shortstop prospects. Nobody would have been surprised to see Jake Bird, I think, go for a player to be named later or a low A guy. And instead, we give a guy who in the future could be very excited to hit in that offensive environment in Colorado. So, yeah, this trade gets a D, and that feels pretty generous. The Yankees are probably going to end up losing this one in the long term unless Jake Bird has a miraculous comeback and manages to salvage his Yankee tenure after a really, really inauspicious start and a demotion to AAA. And the final trade of the video, Camilo Doval will join the Yankees bullpen in exchange for a 4-man package headed to the San Francisco Giants pitchers Tristan Vierling and Carlos De La Rosa, along with catcher Jesus Rodriguez and infielder Parks Harbor. And the Giants did well to get a lot in return for a reliever with command issues. Now, Doval has supreme stuff, as Yankee fans have already seen, but as Yankee fans have already seen, he gives up the walk. He doesn't throw strikes all the time. Thinking a Aroldis Chapman kind of pitcher, a guy who can just lose control for a couple batters at a time and get himself into trouble. And this was definitely a pitcher with a lot of suitors here at the trade deadline. So the Yankees had to outdeal other teams, and they managed to do that still without giving away a top guy. And this is probably the most impressive piece of business in that regard, where I guarantee you the Giants had a lot of other teams coming at them for Doval, and the Yankees still managed to get Doval without having to give up one of their top prospects. So it's a very impressive piece of business in that way. Now, the Giants may have won this trade in the long run. They have a pretty good development system, and they do tend to pick prospects pretty well in trades. So expect to see some of these guys up on the Major League roster for the San Francisco Giants at some point. But for now, I still think this is a trade for the Yankees, and I'm still a Doval fan despite his early struggles in pinstripes, so I'm giving this a B-. And B- was my original grade for the Yankees trade deadline as a whole initially. Now I've downgraded that to just a C. And like I already said in the video, the mission here is to win championships, and you make the sacrifice necessary to win championships, and if that sacrifice is a top prospect, you just make that sacrifice. And Brian Cashman clearly took an attitude of, let's see how much min-maxing I can do. Let's see how much depth I can add to the roster, how many players on my short list I can bring in without having to give up any of my top prospects. If they get knocked out in the first round, which probably will happen, or especially if they miss the playoffs, expect to see Aaron Boone gone, and of course, expect to see Brian Cashman still right back in his GM seat when next year starts with some new manager for him to fire in 4 or 5 years when this team doesn't play fundamental defense and can't run the bases again.